me even, or anything about organics. You could talk about the other products I didn't get to.
Okay, yeah, so we have a couple of questions, one for Joe here. Have you tested or has anyone tested the liquid corn gluten meal?
Yes. I don't know why my camera's not working.
Looks like
There's a product called Glutenate. We hadn't carried it because it wasn't registered in Connecticut. I apologize, my camera's not coming on for some reason. Can you hear me, Vin?
yeah, we hear you.
Yep. I would say, and actually those studies at Ohio State, I think were done with the liquid product. And I would say efficacy wise, you're getting the same amount of crabgrass pre-emergent, whether you're using a liquid or a granular. It's going to work 6 one, half dozen the other. And again, it's nowhere near where the synthetics are. Still the holy grail as far as weed control. The difference is you don't get the nitrogen, the macronutrients with the liquid. You can't get enough nitrogen down. The granular is a 10% nitrogen, and you're putting down 4 or 5 pounds. That's half a pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet, which in an organic program, you want between a half a pound to a pound at least, up to 2 pounds. With organic programs, you can get away with a little less. So you get a 2-in-1 with the granular. You get the nitrogen, you get a great green up in the spring with the granular. So it's essentially a fertilizer, and you hope you get the weed control. And the thing is, if you don't get the full weed control, at least you could tell your clients you gave them a fertilizer and you're not losing money with the liquid. You put it down. If you don't get the weed control, which it can be hit or miss, you don't get the green up, you sort of wasted your money. So I always suggest the granular for that reason. You do need macronutrients. If you use a liquid, you still need to get you still need to put down a fertilizer to get the pounds on the ground.
Okay, great. Okay, the next question is also for Joe. For organic fertilizers with worm castings, are there any concerns about spreading jumping worms via cocoons, or have the products been properly composted to kill them?
That is an issue. I tried to get somebody to talk about jumping worms. If you guys don't know, they look just like earthworms. They're becoming a bigger problem every year. We get more and more calls. These worms, they're very active. They came into this country from China, I think, or overseas. Fishermen loved them because they're very active, and then they spread. They're so active, they actually start to destroy the soil around roots. I think they actually eat the roots, and they will kill plants, unlike standard earthworms. And there's really nothing you can do. It's sort of off-label. People are looking at high levels of yucca extract has worked. We have clients using that very high level. You're going to kill good and bad, but we've had clients that have had success with high levels of yucca. Yeah, Steve, it's interesting. We're trying to get some research done on that to get emergency use, but this is a big problem. But yes, compost can spread it, and there have been cases of it. If you're composting, you have jumping worms in there, the eggs are in there, the worms, that's going to spread. Worm castings, any of that. So you need to be careful. We use a product called Worm Power because of what I said about the weed seed. The reason we use them is because they actually manually cook it. They're on an organic dairy farm. They take the manure, so the same thing's going in the cows, it's coming out the cows all the time, very consistent. They manually heat it up, then it kills the weed seed and sterilizes it, and then they feed the microbes and the worms to it to build it up. So you get a weed-free formula that way, and they've got a worm stock in there, and you just hope that the manual heating kills not just the weed seeds, but those eggs. But yes, it is a problem. I've seen it happen. I don't know if they're on, but a company called Madison Earth Care here had that happen. We get a lot of calls about the jumping worms. It's becoming a bigger issue. Have you seen them a lot, Steve?
Yeah, we've seen them in particular towns, North Guilford.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, Guilford is where I've seen a lot, and Madison Earth Care calls me. Yeah, it's becoming a problem. Do you have any solutions for it? Like even synthetically, there's really nothing, because most things really, you don't want to kill earthworms, but unfortunately there's no way to distinguish this.
Yeah. We saw it not this year as much, but last year when it was raining all the time last fall.
Yeah.
They were just coming out of the ground. The ground was just so saturated. That's when we saw a lot of them coming out of the ground.
Yeah, they're very active. Like you'll see them, and they literally jump. Like they'll move faster than standard earthworms. And if you look it up online, you could tell that I forget the technical term, but you know how worms have that little band. You could tell by the difference in the bands. That's how you can tell the difference. Otherwise, they look identical. They're very hard to identify. So if I can find a picture, I'll bring it up. But you can look it up online too, and that's how you would identify them. But you can probably tell just by the way they move, and they will destroy turf and plants in there. Almost impossible to get rid of once you have them.
Okay, excellent. Next question I have for Joe. Can you overseed if you apply corn gluten?
Yes, because the way it was explained to me, and I haven't seen science on this, crabgrass and weed seeds have hairs on them, and the dipeptides burn the hairs and kill the seeds. I would say this is more anecdotal. The manufacturer has told me about this. But monocots, which grasses, doesn't have the hairs on the seeds, and apparently that's how it works. That's what I heard about the mechanism. I don't have science to back it up, so I want to give you that caveat. But we have seen people do put it down. A lot of people do put it down when you seed. We haven't had issues with the grass. If you want to be sure, put the grass seed in, let it germinate, and then put the corn gluten down. Steve will tell you, he sends, he does Facebook posts about this all the time. You really want to seed in the fall anyway. When it starts to rain again, spring seeding, you're going to get, the annuals come out, looks good. You don't get a lot of it to stick. But the spring is when really, if you're going to do 2 treatments, 50-degree soil temperature. If you go to our website or Google Syngenta Greencast, it's this amazing tool. You put your zip code in, it is going to tell you the soil temperatures down to the degree. And I tested this. I had a soil temperature thermometer. I don't know how they do it. But we have a lot of difficulties here because we're on the shoreline. And 5 miles up, we have huge differences. I've seen 5-degree shifts in the soil temperatures down here on the shoreline versus 5-10 miles inland. So it's a very handy tool. You want to pinpoint your treatments at 50 degrees. Fertilizer has very little value before 50 degrees because there's no biological activity. The biological is inert. So you put the fertilizers down, it's running off. That's why we have laws. You can't put nitrogen down during certain times. So back to the question on the corn gluten, really you want to be seeding in the fall anyway. So the spring is when you're going to get this down. 50 degrees, if you're doing 2 treatments, that's going to get your broadleaves. 55 degrees, 57 degrees, that's when crabgrass germinates. So you want to get the gluten down right around that soil temperature if you can, because it's going to stick around longer, have a better effect. But we do have people that put down the gluten and then seed if you need to. Do you have anything to add to that, Steve, about the seeding?
Yeah, I mean, we avoid seeding in the spring at all costs unless it's bare soil. And really, we call it a cover crop till the fall. We don't even call it seeding. It's really a cover crop to protect the bare ground because there's like a 90% or 99% failure rate in spring seeding, or at least a quality spring seeding. Because by the time that seed gets established, it's trying to go into summer dormancy, or the roots are so shallow that any kind of summer heat, it will, it just will not survive the summer. The roots will fill it in. You can't really use a pre-emergent unless you can follow it with tenacity or some weed control. It just ends up being a failure. And what happens, the expectation, even if you educate your clients, the failure rate is so high. You're telling them, yes, this is not permanent. This is only temporary till we can do the real lawn in the fall. The pain involved in that is so immense and intense. Most long-term people in the industry will try to avoid spring seeding. And other people will tell me that they have had great success seeding in the spring. And then like I see they stop it after 2 or 3 years because the phone calls, by the time I'd say the 1st or 2nd week of August comes, their clients are furious with them. Even though they educate them, they tell them this is only a temporary fix just to protect the soil. Clients just, they have a hard time with it. It's fine if you're gonna do 1 or 2 because you have to. But if you're gonna go out and do 20 or 30, expect half of those people to be your worst nightmare. If you're into that, that's fine, but just expect the phone calls and the disappointment.
It's really, yeah, it's, we just want to give you an honest overview and set expectations. So Steve's been doing this for years, and we're just going to ooze our knowledge to you with these questions. So ask anything on subject or off subject. You've got access to one of the great minds here with Steve.
Okay, the next question we have you found the mesotrione is as effective as quinclorac for post-emergent crabgrass control?
So my expertise is in organics. Besides the mesotrione, we don't sell synthetic, so I can't speak to that compound. The mesotrione is very effective. The one issue with it is it's a photosynthetic inhibitor. That's what reduces the toxicity of it. Like a lot of other compounds that crosstalk with things in our body, we have nothing photosynthetic. The drawback of that, because it's a safe mechanism, is your lawn is going to look like you bleached it for a week or 2. So you do have to set expectations for clients. You do have to tell them that your lawn is going to turn white. It might be a mowing or 2, but the lawn bounces back, the crabgrass and the weeds don't. It also gives you about 3 weeks of pre-emergent activity, which I'm not sure if that compound does. So it's very effective, works well. It's a good solution if you don't put down a pre-emergent and you have the post-emergent come down. And if people are concerned about their dogs and stuff, you don't have to worry about the toxicity. So it does give you an alternative. But tell your clients the lawn's going to be white for a little bit. That's that is a drawback of it. And if they don't want that, then we need to go to one of the other synthetics.
Yeah, we find they both work really well up to about the end of June. And then once you get into July is where the disappointment will begin, because once that crabgrass starts to mature is where it neither one of them work as well as up till the end of June. So you're good up until like maybe summer solstice, and then after that it's going to be a struggle. And then after the end of July, to stop with crabgrass, like really just stop trying to kill crabgrass. It's so mature and so hardened off. It's almost impossible. Plus you're only a few weeks away, maybe, where it's going into decline. Like we're only 4 or 5 weeks away where it's starting to decline anyways. So yeah, either one of those products is fine. In that, I would say from middle of May until maybe the 3rd week of June. But when you get into July, the higher rates you have to use, they'll still work, but you're still not going to get as high like of a kill rate.
Yeah. And we see this, so a lot of these compounds, and it doesn't just go for this, it goes for selective weed killers too, whether it's synthetic or in our case, we use the Fiesta. It's an iron-based selective. Eric's going to talk about the granular form of that later on. These compounds require uptake by the weed to kill them. And we don't realize it because we see the grass kind of go dormant during the summer. If you don't have irrigation, it turns yellow. Weeds go dormant too. They tend to stay greener, so it tricks people. So if you don't have active weed growth, whether it's crabgrass or broadleaves, you don't get the uptake. You don't get as much of a kill. So we have failures with Fiesta, the selective, because it's applied during the summer. People see the weeds, it doesn't work, it's not uptaken, you need active growth. So the rule of thumb I use for these kind of compounds, like Steve said, the Solstice, is if you don't need to mow your lawn every week, you're down to 2 or 3 weeks, it's not actively growing, probably these compounds may not work.
Okay. All right. So the next question that we have is what is the best organic product to kill chinch bugs and also lantern flies?
So we're going to talk about the lantern flies in a little bit. We got Dr. Claire Rutledge from the Ag Station, so I'm going to defer on her on that. Our best pest product on the organic world is really spinosad. We carry a product called, Conserver and Trust are them. Really good. insecticides that used correctly, sprayed at night, are generally safe for pollinators. But I'm going to defer to her on that. She's going to give a talk, right after lunch here on the spotted lantern flies. Chinch bugs are tough. We have a product called Grandivo that's biological. That does seem to work. Other organics that I've seen labeled for that are super expensive. We had a program that we used through Bioworks, super expensive. The problem with chinch bugs is they're very proliferative. And there's a lot of eggs in the ground, and most of these compounds aren't going to affect the eggs. So you kill the adults, the next round hatches, and then you have to treat again. So they're very hard to control. The key with chinch bugs is we don't get a lot of organic growers, organic landscapers that get chinch bugs, because chinch bugs love thatch. If you think of thatch, thatch is you mow the lawn, you put it down, thatch builds up. If you get thatch, it's because you don't have good biology in your soil. Think of thatch as compost that's not breaking down. It's because of biological activity. We've actually had people spray Quantum Growth, to help instigate and break down all that carbon. So we see chinch bugs more because of the thatch that you'll see in synthetic lawns, where people are using preventative fungicides or have used fungicides, kill off the biology. The biology can't break down the organic matter that's falling, and you got thatch buildup. So very hard to control. It's, again, a cultural practice, by using good biologicals, or practices with prebiotics and soil health, balanced soil that instigates the natural biology. You're going to have a lot less of a thatch problem and then a lot less of a chinch bug. It's not going to be 100%, but that certainly is the best thing you can do culturally. And then, Grandivo is a solution. It's not perfect. And you do need to really go back out a week later, 2 weeks later, and retreat if you do. Do you have stuff to add to that, Steve?
I think the best thing to do is manage that thatch layer, and keeping keep the pH high, making sure that you're putting the carbon down, getting the biology in there, and just feeding the microbes. We use a lot of microbes, a lot of sugar, a lot of molasses, and a lot of granular organics too. So always putting something down that's feeding the biology, and we bought a company that was doing a poly-coated program, and we took about an average of inch of thatch, and within a year we had it all gone. And they had epic continuous challenges with chinch bugs. Like they were doing 2 apps back to back in July and August, and we got rid of the thatch, and we got rid of the chinch bug. So, I mean, we're down to less than 1% of the clients having chinch bug issues.
Yeah. And that's because Steve's, basically using the prebiotic program and really, with good biology. And, if you do have thatch, you can dethatch a lawn mechanically. It's a lot of work. It's tough on your labor. The best thing is to avoid it before it happens culturally.
Okay, we have a couple more questions here. This is a question from Betty. What do you both think about using clover lawns to replace cool season lawns?
So, clover is great if you can tolerate it. People say that clover is nitrogen fixing. It's not. The microbes that clover, it's really cool. If you look at a picture of like a peanut root or like legumes and clover, you get nodules on the roots. If you look up root nodules, you'll see a root, and I've had people call me, thinking something's wrong, but there are these little nodules that grow on the roots. And these are little havens where legumes, we eat legumes, things that are, because they're high in nitrogen, amino acids, very healthy for us. Amino acids are composed of nitrogen. So these plants like clover will actually help to fix nitrogen in the soil by making these nodules that harbor what are called nitrogen fixing microbes that take nitrogen out of the air. Our air is 78% nitrogen. We're breathing 78% nitrogen. It's wasted. And then we're putting down granular nitrogen. These microbes, they're called nitrifying microbes, pull the nitrogen out of the air. So they're taking all this natural nitrogen that's around us and harboring these microbes in their in these nodules, it's really cool. I came from the human side of medicine, and I used to say dirt, and until you realize it's really a living organism, what plants are doing, it's fascinating. And they have the symbiotic relation or mutualistic relationship with the nitrogen fixing microbes, and you're putting nitrogen into your lawn naturally. So they sell things like microclover now, which is smaller, so you don't see it as much. This is like almost like getting a natural, healthy fertilizer for your lawn. Problem we run into is people just see clover, they don't want it, they don't understand that. So, you know, you're back to your regular nitrogen, but you know, microclover, if you can tolerate it, is a great thing for your lawn, very healthy.
Yeah, add some diversity to your lawn and really diversity, like, I think all of the studies have shown that I've read. That's why it's good to have, you know, mixes in your lawn and not monocultures like just straight bluegrass, right? Having that bluegrass, the fescue, the fine fescues, tall fescues, we even have hard fescue. Because our research shows that lawns that have even a little bit of hard fescue in them, even if it's full sun, which doesn't make any sense, but even hard fescue in a full sun lawn has more sustainability. And I saw that at the University of Rhode Island. They had full sun plots, and the plots that did the best had hard fescue in it, in full sun, and it was in subsoil plots. So yeah, diversity is good, but like a monoculture of clover, I don't know, like it may do well for a very short period of time, but I don't know if that would be having that as a pure lawn. I don't know if that would be sustainable.
Yeah. And you're probably not going to get away with not putting down your granulars as well. You're still, it's probably enough, but it certainly helps. It's good for your lawn if you can tolerate it. And farmers now on the ag side, and the government, the USDA is now recommending this and teaching it, is they're doing cover crops. So a farm, you know, you may have a crop, it's only going to grow for like 4 months. You plow the field down, you've got nothing growing in that soil. So now nothing is feeding the soil, nothing is taking carbon and nitrogen out of the air. Your biology, all the fungal networks, the mycorrhizal fungal that's naturally in your soil, the microbes, populations go way down. In the spring, when you plant, you're starting over from scratch biologically in your soil. So now farmers put down things like clover, rye, certain things. They put them, they're essentially weeds. They fill their fields with weeds. That builds carbon, that builds nitrogen out, and they kill it in the spring and put their crops on. And they're finding you're getting away with much less compost, much less fertilizer, and it's much healthier soil and much healthier lawns. So that's actually on the ag side. The ag side's always a little bit ahead of the lawn side. And we're trying to take some of the things they're doing over there, you know, regenerative growing, and bringing it over to this side. And a lot of what we're doing is based on ag as well. Steve was way ahead of his time doing this, but yeah, clover is a good thing.
Okay. Another question, for an organic lawn care program, can you go through your typical treatment throughout the season, more pertaining to a preference for mechanical or chemical aeration, and which, if any, autonomous mowers might you prefer?
So I'll refer, because I see Steve smiling. He could talk about liquid aeration. You know, he's an expert on that. But what our program entails, or a good program should entail, is in the spring, when you hit 50 degrees on soil temperatures, we recommend a granular fertilizer. Our programs have the 1002 corn gluten. If you're going to do 100% organic, it's going to give you a really nice green up. And again, we talked about it. Hopefully you get some pre-emergent. It's the best of bad solutions in terms of pre-emergence. And then the liquid app at the same time or right after would be the quantum growth. So with the Neptune's Harvest turf formula, which has no phosphorus. Again, that's the synergistic. You got your prebiotic, your probiotic. That's really building your soil down and driving root growth. So when you put down nitrogen, I know a lot of applicators, they don't necessarily want to do it too much, but you need the green up. You know, in the spring, everybody's happy. True Green came around. They put down all that nitrogen. Everybody's lawn's turning green. You want the quick green up. Nitrogen sort of acts like a hormone. It's going to push top growth, going to green it up. It's at the behest of root growth. You know, your turf only has so much energy. If it's putting it to the top, it's not growing as much roots. The quantum growth in the Neptunes builds the soil The microbes, it's actually really cool, make plant hormones, you know, your auxins, your gibberellic acids, your cytokinins, and those hormones push root growth. So you get a more balanced growth that way, even though the liquids won't give you a quick green up. So in the spring, we do that. Also, the microbes are going to really make that nitrogen, you know, people are reducing 15 to 25% on your nitrogen with the microbes because it's more efficient. It gets utilized quicker. It gets cycled quicker. It's not a substitute, but you can greatly reduce. We have ag studies where they reduce 25 and 50% and get the same growth with the Quantum. So, you know, that's our spring treatment. It helps you reduce your nitrogen use to 1/2 pound. You get a good green up. That lawn is going to be healthier down the road. And then around June, we go with just the liquid program. And let me just backwards. In the spring, you could do your hybrids. You could do your synthetic weed and feed if you don't use the gluten. If you're doing a hybrid program. In the spring, maybe around June, we do a 1/2 rate of the Quantum and Neptunes. That's again just going to push root growth, get that lawn ready for dormancy if you don't have irrigation, make it hardier during the summer, better roots, better, you know, for grub resistance. And then in the fall, again, we do the liquid, that same 1/2 rate. So it's 3 applications per year. If you can't do 3 applications, you can't do the June application. You do a full rate in the spring, full rate in the fall. You end up with the same amount of product. Fall's for root growth. Fall is really about root growth, whether you're a tree, whether you're a plant, whether you're turf, you're going to drive those roots. What our clients tell us over and over, especially the first year, is their lawns stay greener longer into the winter than something that's a salt-based fertilizer. Those lawns green up quicker in the winter. That's because deeper roots, you know. A root that's this long, like the pictures I showed that Steve did, versus a lawn that's this long, these roots have better access to nutrients, better access to water, but also the soil's warmer down here. So they're going to stay greener longer during the winter and green up quicker. And that's the basis of our program. If you do grub control, July through August, tick, you want to do monthly. If you do like an organic, our programs are based on cedar and 2-phenethylpropionate. You want to start as soon as you see spring ticks, they come out early, and you want to do about every 4-week treatment. You can sometimes if we have a dry summer, you can get away without it. The ticks aren't active, and then you want to pick it back up in the fall. So as far as the aeration, Steve can tell you a little bit about liquid aeration and talk about that.
So you know what?
I didn't realize my mic was over there. I don't know if anybody actually heard me. I don't talking the other times without my
hear you.
mic. So the liquid aeration is kind of a hot topic in the lawn care industry. We've been doing liquid organic aeration for 30 years. And the reason we do it is because I core aerated for years and we would never really notice any difference in the lawns. So we started doing liquid organic aeration for years, and originally it was hard to sell it until we, you know, kind of wrapped it up into calling it liquid organic aeration. And we do it one in the spring and one in the fall, and it's a surfactant. We use yucca, and then we have the carbon, fulvic, and humic acids, and then we'll use you know, or some type of live organic like Joe's product, or some type of, we want some living organisms in there. And we want some protein, so we'll use either some fish or soy product. We want some type of protein in there. And then the reason that we do that is, so instead of just getting core aeration, where you're just getting where the hole is down like 2 or 3 inches, with the liquid, you get 100% of the area. And, you know, it will go down 8 to 10 inches. And I have sample after sample of lawns being, you know, an inch or 2-inch root system, and within 6 weeks having a 8 to 10 inch root system. And I've pulled cores the whole length of my soil probe hundreds of times on lawns that have been on our program for years. Now, most of the lawns I'm dealing with are sandy loam soils, but we don't even own a core aerator. Now, some people core aerate and overseed. That's a different use of aeration than just for soil compaction. But so the whole process of the liquid aeration is you spray it on, it gets watered in, and that product coats the soil particles. and it releases compaction or soil tension in between individual soil particles, because the soil, the roots do not want to go where compaction is above 300 PSI. I have a meter that measures compaction in the soil. So we're measuring that in the lawn. So if you can reduce the compaction in the soil, the roots will go deeper. So we, over the years, we've tried different kind of products, and really it's the same thing. You got to get the carbon, you got to get some type of protein, some type of live, some type of sugar. That's why we use the molasses, and get that down into the soil. And the roots will actually chase that.
And some people use like our core program, the Quantum and Neptunes, as a liquid aeration because it kind of gives all the things very easy to use that Steve does, essentially. So, and I know like sports turf, sometimes the mechanical aeration is necessary. You get a lot of compaction. It's painful. It's painful to do. Tough again on your labor, things like that. So, and yucca, Steve, right?
Yucca. We use
like,
yucca.
yeah.
So, right, we're a large operation. You know, we're treating about 65 million feet per round. So we're buying products in at, 250. So when I get my molasses, it comes from the molasses company, and we're getting 1,000 gallons at a time. So it's a different scale. And the other, we have a process for mixing. We have mixing, it's a whole different scale now than buying a gallon at a time.
Yeah, and we sell gallons and 5 gallons of like yucca. Yucca's great. A lot of people put in a lot of their treatments. It's a natural wetting agent. It also helps to permeabilize the soil, helps everything get into the soil. So, you probably get like a little aeration just out of that as well. It's a great product. It really is.
Yucca is your product, the growth, the molasses and yucca that's really all you need. I make everything more complicated because I'm always pushing the envelope in what I want to do with the soil. Like with the soil testing, we are UConn's largest client in soil testing. And, we went through 30 truckloads of lime last year, 30 tractor trailer loads of lime. So we max out everything to get the soil right. So I'm pushing it beyond what I would consider normal people should do.
It works. You've been successful. Any more questions? Maybe we'll take a 5-minute, people come in and out from lunch, obviously. Maybe we'll do a 5-minute break. We will have another Q&A session later on. Vin will be here. I'm actually gonna have to leave a little early I got daddy duty. But we will have another Q&A session, and any questions we can't get to, we can email you or do it offline. Feel free to call us 866-374-5101 or info@Green Earth Ag and Turf. So we'll take a 5-minute break. Thank you, Steve, for all that. It's again, like all your experience and giving it to everybody. It's everything sounds good when you read about it or in theory, but you've been in the field doing it, and that's that's invaluable.
Absolutely. You're welcome, Joe. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.